Welcome to this week's episode of Courageous Leaders Changing the World. Super excited for this week's guest, Dr. Daniel Kirkbride. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, mate.
So the one question we ask everyone is,
Mm-hmm.
what's been a time that you had to summon more courage than any other time?
I would say a few come to mind, but the first one was during lockdown COVID times and making the transition to finish up my clinic lease and move to Gold Coast and step into the metaphorical unknown at the time, which was go all in on the online coaching and close what I knew was safe, which was traditional osteo, rub and crack, having a successful business model face to face and stepping out of that and moving states, changing career with no guarantees it was going to work.
What did you face off with in that transition?
What do you mean?
What were the things that came up with for you when you were going from the tried and true to the unknown?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a pretty what's the word? I'm not very risk averse. I'm the type of
so you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I guess for me, it was a risk in a sense, but I know I've always backed myself and always, I'm the type of person, I've always been very intuitive / impulsive, depending on how you look at it. When I've decided I want to do something, I do it, I burn the boats and I go all in. And I've always backed myself and trusted myself to do that. So I guess it was no different in that situation, but naturally, obviously, in other situations in business, it's you're changing your business model, you're changing one variable of your life. At that stage in my life, it was a relationship had ended, ending my clinic lease, I'm ending my house lease, I'm moving up to a different state where I don't know anyone. So that was a bit scary. And I guess also navigating the lockdowns, I was actually pretty fortunate to get into Gold Coast the last day before they locked it down to Melbourne for the next 6 months or whatever. So it was almost like there was an angel on my shoulder. I remember getting off the plane and checking my phone, and it was an SMS from Queensland government saying that all flights would be turned back after my flight. So I literally got on the very last flight in.
Wow.
Much to my mother's dismay, because she told me to wait a week and not be impulsive. So I chose the impulsive option. And I remember on Friday I decided to close my clinic, and on Sunday my clinic was empty. I'd sold my entire gym, and then Monday I was on a flight. Yeah. So it was very impulsive. But if I didn't do that, I would have been stuck in Melbourne for another 6 months. So yeah.
How do you recognize the difference between the impulsiveness versus the intuitive nudge?
It's hard to explain. I think when I was younger, I'm only 30 back in my day. I think when I was younger, there was definitely a lot more impulse. I've always been very if you're into disc profile and very D, just do the thing, not really worry about it till later. I'd say 95% of the time it served me, but 5% of the time it's probably maybe not served me, and I probably should have maybe thought about it a bit longer or not done the thing. But you win or you learn. But as I've gotten a bit older and potentially more mature, I hope, it's probably just sitting with things a little bit longer and actually trying to get in tune with how I feel and get out of my analytical brain, which is very challenging because I'm a very analytical person, if you haven't noticed. So for me, it's really just having that space, or creating the space, I should say, because the space never comes when you're busy. Creating the space to just give you 5-15 minutes, drop into your breath and be present and actually feel into it, as woo-woo as that sounds. Is this actually something that feels right, or is it just me being shiny object, ADHD, insert medical condition of choice? Because I can be very impulsive ADHD, and I know that. But so that's something I've tried to find a middle ground over the last few years. Is I'm having the impulse, I want to do the thing. Old me would just be take the credit card, do the thing, sign up for the program, leave the country. And now I'm kind of taking I have a 24-hour rule now where I just don't make impulsive decisions, which can piss some people off on sales calls because they just make a decision, step into your power. I'm I want to think about it, which I hate people like that. But it's more of I know my patterns now, so I know that I can be impulsive. I'm not avoidant in the sense of I'm going to think about it for 3 weeks and talk to my goldfish and my dog about it. It's just I know I'm 99% in, but just give me the night to sleep on it, and then I'll be all in, and then I'm the best client ever, and I'll fully commit. But just because I've probably had a few experiences in the past where it hasn't gone so well, and I haven't actually given it that process, and it's easy to get caught up in the moment of the hype and the dopamine and the emotions, especially when you're at events and sign up to programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm at a happy medium now, hopefully.
Love it. Yeah, it's interesting. We're told to close everyone on the spot, but the more someone has been in experiences of high level containers, the more likely they are to want to take more time to be able to do it. Not from a place of even thinking about it. It's just kind of sitting with it. And most people don't actually recognize that, especially in high ticket sales. It's like, you just got to back yourself, do your things. And it's like, well, yeah, sure. And based on how I operate, this is what I do. And most people don't actually ever get to the level of congruence to be able to actually have that conversation with people, because they just fall back into, well, you know, if you don't, then you're not backing yourself and all these things. What do you see with that? Do you see people? There's always the inverse of it. The people that are doing it as a strategy to be able to basically not say no. Like a lot of people, like a lot of low level people struggle to say no, so they go, "I'll think about it."
Yeah, the yes objection.
Yeah. What do you see in terms of the patterns of that playing out, especially with the high level people that you work with?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just appreciation for you, because I remember that when we had alcohol, I really liked that about you. That was what I enjoyed about alcohol. I'd probably had a few toxic experiences before that with other coaches in Gold Coast, where it was like, you know, if I run to the back of the room and sign up, or you're not committed, and, you know, change your life. And so it was a nice change to have someone who was just like, here's the thing, I know my value. If you want it, awesome. If you don't, like, cool too. So I think, yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm very similar. I think it's a fine line though, because I think it's just reading people's personality and understanding like a big thing that Ryan Tuckwood taught me was about the disc profiling and understanding where people are at as well. Because I guess if you have those D personalities, you can be a bit more like direct and like, hey, bro, like just off the record, is this? If you're not interested, totally fine. We can call this now. Last thing I want to do is follow you up or bother you if it's not something you're interested in. So like, I just literally say something like that and give them an out. And then if they want an out, like those people who feel uncomfortable with confrontation, which is a lot of people, will just take the out. Or if there's someone who's like me, for example, it might be like, no, like genuinely keen, mate, just like want to have a day. And if that's the case, I'm not going to like push down their throat and be like, make a change. I think at the end of the day, if someone wants to do something, they'll do it. Obviously, there's a percentage of people that might need that push because of fear and, you know, maybe they made a mistake in the past, like what I had, you know, invested in something bad and now you don't trust yourself. So I think short answer would be like just reading the room, understanding people, which is not an exact science. And then just knowing when to push and when to pull and not being silly about it. I think there's a fine line between giving someone a nudge in the right direction versus potentially, you know, damaging your brand and pissing people off by pushing too hard. So, I just try and I think it's just a unique situation you have to navigate with every person and just have some emotional intelligence and be able to read body language and have a strategy as well, like with how you structure the conversation. But with a lot of high level people, what I've realized is, remember like one of my mates, he's really wealthy and he came over to my house and we were going to a festival and we had Spotify on, and then halfway through an ad came on and I was like, whose Spotify is this? And he looks over, it's him. I'm like, bro, you have a Lamborghini and you don't pay for Spotify. That's why I have a Lamborghini. And it's like this paradigm shift of like, oh, wealthy, you know, rich people have money, they must spend money. And I'm like, no, rich people are actually like probably some of the most stringent, prudent people because they're very strategic of how they invest their money. And it's like, yeah, they've got the money, but like they're very, is this valuable? And like, if it's valuable, I'll happily drop $100,000. But if it's not valuable, I'm not even going to spend $10 on it, even if it's only $10. And that really changed my perception because I was very like, oh, I've got money, I'll spend money. And it was all backwards. So I guess understanding their thought process and going, even though some of these people are like high level personalities, they're D types, they're super successful. Like a lot of the people I work with, they're speakers, they're coaches, they're 7-figure entrepreneurs. And you're like, these guys just get it done. A lot of them are very methodical and very strategic with their thought process. And if you try and fuck with that, can we swear?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we try and fuck with that, it just deters them and kind of puts them off. It's like, bro, don't try and convince me or like put me into a corner. Like I know what you're doing. Just give me the facts, give me the strategy, show me the value. And I think if you have proof input in of like testimonial, social proof, you clearly know your shit and you can articulate your value, then the person has enough information to make the decision and you don't really need to pressure them or like use some sleazy sales tactics. So to me, it's never really been my style. And then I guess if you layer in some of the more disc profile stuff and, you know, some of the stuff Ryan Tuckwood covers, it's a great combination. Have you spoken to Ryan? Do you know him very well?
I know him through events and stuff like that, but, you know, had just a couple of passing conversations with him and stuff like that as well. So, through NavDeep, of course. Yeah, of course. NavDeep, the connector. Yeah, I mean, he's really good because like I come from I wanted to be an engineer when I was in high school. So I was very good at like numbers and structure and physics and methods and all that kind of stuff, accounting. Hated biology. Ironically, here we are. So Ryan's very structured with his approach, which I like because I think lots of people in sales, it's very, motive versus with Ryan, it's very
understand the person, DISC, emotional intelligence, and then it's a process. Follow the steps. If you do that, it's like so easy and so ethical and like completely different to anything I've experienced with other sales trainers and people in the past where it's just, very like get them emotional, get them in the right state, and then, fuck them. And then make sure you've got really good T&Cs and size 8 fine print so they can't come crying later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunately the industry that we live in where it becomes more and more common where people have those negative buying experiences, whether it's, the majority of people are taught, and this is one of the things that a lot of our clients say to us, it's like, well, I've never had an example of like actually selling in a way from stage in a way that actually is an integrous way for me to be able to do it because they've only seen the run to the back of the room, putting people into, activating their shame or activating their fear mechanisms so that they either feel not good enough or feel like that, they're going to miss out so that then they have to buy and that's the only way they can do it.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately the industry that we live in. And it becomes, as you said, like so refreshing when people can actually experience it in a different way, which is actually congruent with them to actually curate an experience where people actually want to buy rather than they feel sold to.
Yeah.
What have you found has made, I guess, the greatest shifts in terms of you and how you're relating to your business and how you sell?
Because I think in healthcare, it's even more elegant. Every business is elegant, but I think health especially, like I see a lot of fear mongering and, like you're trying to tell people they're fucked so they buy something. And, if you don't do this, like, your health's going to be terrible. So it's like I've been very careful with how I do things because I don't want people to feel like, oh, I'm fucked and I need this, or I'm going to have cancer and die. But then the problem is as well, it's like people are 10 times more motivated. Well, I don't know the exact number, but people are significantly more motivated by pain and, problem versus solution. It's been interesting. I've been testing this over the last 12, 18 months, like with the lead magnets I run, where it's like, do you want to optimize your health and longevity and get jacked and juicy? And it's like 10 leads. And then you put like, do you want to check if you've got, risk factors for dementia? Like 100 leads. So everyone's very motivated by pain, which it makes sense, but I think it's just, you got to be elegant and ethical with how you do it. So you're not, fear mongering people to make a decision, but you're also finding that happy medium of like, if someone does have a genuine problem, my toxic trait used to be like, didn't want to be the pushy guy. So I'd be like, oh, it's, just think about it. I'm like, that person genuinely, like, if I don't help them, they're not going to die in a year, but like, it's definitely going to affect their quality of life for the next 10 years and they're probably going to die 10 years younger. So I probably should have pushed that person a little bit and I didn't. But then if you push too hard, then it comes across as like, you're being a bit manipulative. So it is a fine line and something I've, I guess I haven't got perfect, but I like to think I'm doing it in an ethical way. So yeah, it's just a constant refinement of that process, I guess.
What do you see as the common mistakes that a lot of high achievers and overachievers start to make with their health? I remember, like as an example, I remember the first 25K package that I did, like a one-on-one package for someone. Yeah. And that was when I was still had a lot of ties to the fitness industry, still on the board for Sports Nutrition Australia, things like that. So it was very much like health focused. And it was interesting to be able to see the stark contrast in terms of what drove, general population people versus high achievers. What have you seen in terms of some of the tendencies for people that, the high achievers and what they do in terms of how they relate to their health?
Most of them just think they can biohack their biology, which is their biggest toxic trait, not naming any names. I think most of them just have that invincibility complex, which is their best trait and their worst trait, because it's like, well, you kind of need, and I've been guilty of this, I'm sure you have as well, is like you just, especially when you're young and you're like sub 30 especially, but even like sub 40 for some of them as well. It's like once they get to that 40 age, it's usually where it's like, oh shit, okay, like things are slowing down. And then you get in the negative compounding interest of all the stuff you did in your 20s and, those 16-hour days and 10 coffees a day and modafinils and Ritalins and Dexies and, 4 hours sleep all start to catch up on you and they start to realize. But like the way the body works, it's like obviously there's that delayed, symptom. Like I say to people, you can pick up on a dysfunction in blood work 18 months before a symptom starts, and you can pick up on the symptom will start, generally anywhere from 12 to 18 months before you then get diagnosed with a disease. Could even be longer, 3 to 5 years. So if you think about that timeline, it's like, based on that, you could be absolutely throttling yourself right now. Like, I'm, David Goggins, I'm smashing it. I'm doing events every weekend. Like, I'm crushing it. Fuck this health stuff. I don't need it, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay. And then after 12 to 18 months, you're like, oh, I'm starting to feel a bit brain foggy, or I'm like, my focus is really bad. I'll just have more coffee. I'll just have alpha GPC. I'll just have more mushrooms, blah, blah, blah. And then it's not until the 3-year mark where you're like, oh shit, I've actually got a problem. But in that, what I call the purgatory zone, where it's like you have enough symptoms that you notice, but you're not bad enough to get diagnosed. Most of them, that's where the problems are created. And then by the time they get to that 3-year mark, they're like, oh, fuck, now I need help. And you're trying to buffer 3 years of damage in, 6, 12 months. And then the second toxic trait is trying to fix it in 3 months after they've done it for 10 years. That one definitely doesn't bother me. But yeah, so that's the biggest issue is just, I think they're invincible. They don't understand the concept of biology on a deep enough level, which is fair enough. Most people, unless you are trained in that area, it's a tough area to understand, and it's pretty simple on the outside looking in to go, I can just biohack my way through it. But if you don't understand and nurture your biology is either going to, you can either engineer it for success or it's going to be your biggest detriment. And if you're playing the long game, looking at how can I build wealth, not just in 12 months, 18 months, but how can I do this for 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years, then your biology needs to be your number one priority. Because otherwise you'll do it for 3 to 5 years and then you're going to go down the toilet. And then you're going to take 2 or 3 years to get better, which is what I did.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the, it's like a sales story. It's about the dog and the nail. Have you heard that?
Rings a bell. Standing on a nail?
No. Yeah, he's standing on a nail. So there's this dog on this balcony, and he's just like there, and he's like yelping away. And then this salesman comes up and like talks to him, and he's like, "What's wrong with your dog?" He's like, he says, "It's on a nail." And he's like, "Well, why doesn't he move then?" It's like, "Well, it doesn't hurt enough." And that's the thing that plays out for so many people. It's like it doesn't hurt enough for them to be able to take action. It'd be better if they're actually in a worse position because then I'd actually start taking action towards things, but they wait until it gets bad. That means that it actually takes longer to actually fix it. It takes longer time, takes more money. It's more riskier because then time is gone. You're not going to get that time back. And as you said, people want to fix it in that shorter time frame again, which kind of just perpetuates the issues.
Yeah.
And it's very much that. Health is very much that proactive thing that if you're proactive with it, then you can play the long haul.
Yeah.
But if you're not, then, comes back to the quote that everyone says is like, if you're missing your health, you only have one goal.
Yeah.
It's like getting back to health. Doesn't matter. Like you're not focused on making as much money as possible. You're just like, I just got to get back to healthy. And I went through this recently. We had like, I don't get sick.
Sick man only has one wish. I guess.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah. Like I don't get sick normally. Like our 2 kids and my partner was sick like 2 weeks ago. Nothing. All good.
Yeah.
But then earlier this year we were having we had a leak in our kitchen where a pipe broke and then there was like mold coming through and then I was getting mold exposure and getting sick from that. And it was so interesting because I'm just like, fuck, I never get sick. What the fuck is this? Yeah. And it was funny because we're running like a 6-day event and normally you think, okay, cool. 6-day event, I'm going to be pretty cooked doing it and I've been sick and everything. But because we stayed in the hotel, I was out of the mold. I actually felt better working more hours in that instance because I was away from the thing that was playing out in the environment that was actually creating all the issues. Yeah. How important is like people's environment in that instance then to be able to, create thriving health?
Yeah. Super important is the short answer. I always say there's 3 main areas. It's it's environment, nutrition, and relationships. If you have toxic relationships, environment, and nutrition, then you have no chance of being healthy. So the 3 things you have to identify and remove first and foremost before you look at supplements, blood work, and like that is removing those 3 things and replacing them with the opposite, which is obviously good environment, healthy environment. So humans need 3 things: water, air, and food. You need good quality food, air, and water. And then relationships obviously speaks for itself. If anyone's ever been in a sad or toxic or depressive relationship, we all know how much it affects your health, the physical manifestation, the symptoms, and then food. Obviously, most people these days, and even in 2025, there was a study I saw the other day. It was like back in the 80s, 80% of your average shop was single-use ingredients, whole foods, and 20% was like convenient-based stuff. And then 2020 now it's the flip. It's 20% whole foods and 80% pre-packaged processed foods. So you can't expect to be healthy if you're consuming, toxic food, relationships, and environment. So, environment is one of the 3 key pillars. There's actually 8 areas. They're like the 3 condensed versions that I work through with people. But yeah, there's 8 key areas that you want to be working on for your health, and environment's definitely one of the main ones.
Have you seen the reel from Jordan Peterson about the biggest lie that he was ever told?
No.
He basically, he's asked on a podcast, as he is.
Yeah.
What's the biggest lie that you've ever been told? And he's like, I couldn't fucking believe it. It was absolute bullshit. The food pyramid.
Yeah.
It's just like it is set up in a specific way for us to consume specific things, which has no real connection to actual science.
Yeah. It's wild when you look at it once you have an understanding of it. It's like, interesting, eggs and meat only eat every now and then, but then the bottom's like cereal and shit. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think nutrition is the key, eh? It's like obviously there's multiple areas I mentioned, but it all starts with food. I mean, food is either medicine or food is poison, and that's the biggest lever and probably the most significant lever. Like, it's hard to say which one's more important, nutrition, environment. I would argue nutrition, because obviously just how much we're consuming versus environment. Like, you can probably be in a subpar environment but eat good food, versus if you're in a perfect environment, you're eating shit food. Then that's my logic of which one's more important. But yeah, most people have zero nutritional literacy or very minimal nutritional literacy, and it's not their fault. It's not me being harsh on people. I always say to people, it's like, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility, especially if you're an adult and you have kids and a family. It's like, if they're going to follow your nutritional habits. So it's not your fault because you've been brought up with either zero/minimal nutritional literacy. Like in high school, what do you learn? Nutrition pyramid. In uni, if you don't do a health or science degree, you're going to learn nothing. If you do a health or science or medical degree like I did, you learn 4 to 8 weeks, and it's like, here's vitamin B12, here's a list of foods, here's, vitamin D, here's a bunch of foods. Like, you don't really learn anything meaningful or valuable. And I think it's very evidenced by, look at most, again, with respect, like most of the industry in nutrition and dietitians, it's like they're prescribing junk food to people, and it's like, how are you going to a nutritionist and dietitian and then they're recommending you to eat processed foods? It's like, that just sums up the whole, it's a top-down problem versus a person problem. So I think it's hard because, that's the way that this society is set up with the government and education and everything right now. Nutrition's very poor level, which makes it very challenging for the everyday person who's like, well, I'm just going to follow what I've been told, but I go on Instagram and old mate's telling me carnivore, and then the other love's telling me vegan, and then the government's telling me eat cornflakes. Like, fuck, what do? I guess I'll just eat the ice cube diet. Everything's too hard. So I can empathize with people, and that's why with what I do, it's a massive part of what I do now is education, because I think I used to be very coach, which I still am a coach, but it was always like, here's the protocol, here's the plan, here's the meal plan, here's the training plan. But it's like, if you don't understand how to fish, then you're fucked. Like, you need to understand your body, which is your vehicle to success in every area of your life, relationships, business, wealth, all the different areas. If you want to have success in those areas, your health needs to be the pinnacle. And if you don't understand nutrition, environment, relationships, both to yourself and other people, then you have no chance of being healthy. And you can take all the supplements in the world, biohack, ice baths, saunas, all that stuff, which I believe in and I practice, but that's, the 1% of the pyramid. You can't expect to be healthy if those other areas aren't dialed in.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm teasing you. I'm like, there's that 8 areas.
Just keep the open loop a little bit more open.
Yeah. I'll do what Morgan does at his events. He shares 2 and then says we'll come back to the next 2 a few hours later, and the whole day you're like, tell me the area.
One of the things that I noticed a lot with, the ultra successful people was in terms of their health. What do you recommend for them when they're eating out? Because you're not really going to stop them eating out.
Yeah.
What do you say to people in that instance?
I think number 1, control the controllables. Number 2, it's the amalgamation or the overall of what you do on a weekly, monthly basis. It's not what you do on a daily basis or what you do on a one-off. Like, it's just, if you go out for dinner on a Friday night, or you go out for dinner, let's say, even some of the guys I work with, they might go out 4 or 5 times. I'm like, all right, well, let's say on average you eat 3 to 4 meals a day. You've got maths, 21 to 28 meals a week. If you have 4 meals out, that's roughly a seventh. I'm no good at maths. That's roughly a seventh of your week. Okay. Could the other 6/7 be dialed in? If they can, awesome. Control the controllables, and I go damage control when you eat out. So when you're eating out, that's where nutritional education literacy is really important. It's like prioritize clean foods, try and prioritize, single-use ingredients rather than buying like a meal that's got 20 different things in it. Prioritize your proteins, try and get some meat, some veg, some fiber, like just simple stuff that you've probably heard before, but it's not complicated. choose the steak, veggies, and potato. Don't choose the pizza. Yeah, try and choose something that's high protein. My second hack is the main thing that is a problem when you go out to eat is you won't get enough protein, you won't get enough fiber, and you'll overconsume calories. So I used to do this back in the bodybuilding days. Is I would always make sure before I go out, I would have either a massive glass of water or ideally like a protein shake, just like a scoop of protein and some milk or some water. And I'd get some veggies as well. So I'd smash a serve of veggies and a protein shake, just literally water and protein, gross, or you can have milk if you need something that tastes better. And then by the time you get to the restaurant, you're already 50, 60% full. So your satiety is high. So if you're someone who's like, I'm eating out lots and I'm putting on weight, or I'm struggling to manage my body weight, or I'm over consuming calories because I know I love food and I'm going to eat everything, do that first. You'll automatically cut off 50% of the calories you're going to over consume most likely. The second thing is the macronutrient is generally going to be lacking the most when you go out for dinner, unless you go into a steakhouse, is going to be protein. So then you're getting your protein in before you get there. Same sort of issue with fiber and vegetables. If you go into a pizza restaurant or a pasta restaurant and you're like, well, fuck, I'm all out of luck when it comes to protein and fiber here. Well, you've covered that before you went out. So now you're not going to overconsume calories. You're hitting your macros still. You're getting enough protein in. It's not the perfect meal, obviously, from a micronutrient point of view. You're still lacking, vitamins and minerals, but you can easily make that up from the meals before you go out or the meals the next day. So if we zoom out and look at it macro approach, no pun intended, I don't think 1 or 2 meals eaten out is a massive issue, assuming that the other 80% of the week you're dialed in. Like, I'm a human. I like going out. I love food, going out for a burger or pizza with some friends, but I just follow those exact rules.
Yeah.
And then, making sure that food quality is quite high throughout the rest of the week to allow for the fact that the food quality won't be as high when you're going out, because restaurants obviously don't care about the quality. They care about profits and they care about making it taste good, which those two things generally don't align with, organic and perfect and no seed oils and all the things that you want when you're cooking at home.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. When I did bodybuilding, I basically did that all the time. So much so that I wanted to get sponsored by Grilled.
Grilled's the go-to. That's the other thing. Just go to better places. Grilled, Schnitz, Nando's, like places where you can get protein and it's not as bad.
Yeah. So I used to track my macros at Grilled, and I went through every single burger at the thing while I was prepping for a competition.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I want to get sponsored by Grilled. And one of my chiropractor at the time, he's like, oh, I cracked the back of the state person for McDonald's. I can get you sponsored by McDonald's if you want. I'm like, fuck no. That defeats the purpose of it.
Yeah.
I want to have clean food that I can fit in my macros, and then I just don't want to have to pay for it. So I want to get sponsored. That's pretty much as simple as it is.
Yeah.
When people are actually going through their kind of health journey and they've been on that path to start off with, they might have gone down the bodybuilding path, which is really more of a vanity path than a health path. How do you support people to get off vanity, so like gym macros, all of those things for vanity versus actually for health?
I'm in I'd say fortunate / created position where I don't really work with a lot of bodybuilders or fitness crowd anymore. I'd say most of my crowd's very like wellness, longevity, health focus now, where it's I don't really need to convince people. They come into me for that reason. But when I used to work more in bodybuilding, maybe like 3 years ago, powerlifting, and it was very, I just want to get strong and jacked and I don't really care. I think it just comes back to understanding like what's their why and you just got to give people a reason and a why. It sounds cliche, but it's like if you just tell someone to do something, even now when I have clients who do want wellness and longevity, it's like if I tell them just to do the thing, they're like, okay, cool. But if I tell them why they're doing the thing and then how, more importantly, the why, which then links to the benefit, which links to their goal, then they'll do whatever I tell them. So I think it just comes down to your coaching and your communication at the end of the day. But it obviously takes more effort of the why and the goal linking process when you have someone who's not already bought into the process versus someone who's already come and been like, I want to be the healthiest version of myself. When it's bodybuilders and they're like, I don't really care. I just want to be jacked and I'm happy to eat chicken and broccoli and destroy my gut and eat artificial everything every day and be in a calorie deficit my whole life. It's pretty hard to get them out of that without a big goal. But I think it sounds harsh, but the big reason I left that industry was because it just didn't align with me. So I was like, well, I could spend all my time trying to convince you, or I could just go and share my value with someone who actually values it and wants what I have to offer. And I think that was probably a big transition for me around that same time that I moved up to Gold Coast, was like detaching from the bodybuilding, powerlifting world and going to like, okay, well, where is my skill set knowledge actually valued and who wants to listen to it? Because otherwise you're just trying to convince. It's like dating the wrong person and just trying to convince them. It's like, it's a lot of effort, or you could just go find the right person and just be your weird self. Just be a weirdo.
Well, what's been your journey of embracing the weird parts of you then?
Oh, mate, I've never had any trouble with that, eh? I'm a bit of a unique cat. I think for me, I've always been a bit like you, a bit of a weird cat. That's why we get along, mate. I don't know. I've never really had a problem with it. I've always just been pretty authentic, I like to think. I mean, if you have to say you're authentic, maybe you're not authentic, right? It's the inception. But I don't know. I've always been just happy being myself. And if people don't like it, I don't really care too much. I've always just gravitated towards other people who are like me and have similar interests and similar values. And I get bored very easy if I'm not around people that I don't align with. So I don't know. It's never really been a problem for me. I'm just kind of like, I'm going to be my weird self, and then I'll find my people, and the people that I don't like, I'm very happy being alone. I'd say I'm a big extrovert, but I'm also happy to like do things on my own, travel on my own, go to a cafe, go for dinner on my own, go to a movie alone. Like I don't really care. So for me, it's like if I spend time with people, it's because I value them and I value how I feel around them. But if I don't, I'm like, I'm cool. So I've never had that, I guess, desire to be like, okay, I'm going to shrink to fit into this circle. I'm like, I don't give a fuck if I'm part of your circle. I'm just going to go do me. And then eventually you find your own circle, which is interesting because as a kid, we're getting deep now, but as a kid, I got bullied a lot. I never used to fit in. So I don't know if that's maybe like I'm just sharing this now for the first time. I'm like, I don't know if that's maybe like what do you call it? Like not a coping process, but like almost a
defense mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because in like primary school, early high school, I used to get bullied heaps. I was like a little fat ginger kid. Like it's not a combination being ginger and fat as a kid. So yeah, I wasn't really ever like popular or cool. I had a lot of friends, but then I guess like when I got to late high school and early uni where I was like, got fit, found fitness, all of a sudden you're like fit and healthy and better looking bloke and getting good grades and stuff. And you start to get popular and meet friends and do cool stuff. It's interesting how things develop. I feel like it's been a transition from that to like the popular kids. Now I'm like, I just don't give a fuck and I'm happy just to go live on an island.
Yeah, it's interesting how it plays out because there's this dynamic that occurs in teenage years. Basically, it's this moment where we recognize we kind of don't fit in with our family. We don't fit in the social situation that we're in there.
Yeah.
So that's when we start to have an experience where we start to put on a mask, we start to put on an act to be able to fit in that situation. And it can either be that we start to do that or we start to develop the defensive thing, whether it's like us being the pleaser or us being the person that's like, no, I don't care. It's like, again, similar different energies that we all go through, but it's also part of our development because until we go through that phase, we don't actually become independent outside of our family unit.
Yeah.
So it's actually us becoming independent from there. And then that then follows through from, so that's like 14 to 21 where we start to develop that, but we don't actually really truly find ourselves as an individual beyond our family until 21 to 28. And then 28 to 35 is when it really starts to shift again, which was also interesting in terms of what you're saying about, those inflection points of when health becomes more important, because once you get to 35 to 42, that's the time where most people have their cells start to break down. It's a transition point where, up until 35, your cells are reproducing at a certain rate that it actually means that your cells are more reproducing than dying. But as soon as that happens, you start to get to that tipping point between 35 to 42 where they start to get a little bit less. And that's when people start to notice when their health becomes more important because everything they did previously, when we partied in our 20s, very easy to be able to do that. Like if I think back, I just saw a Facebook memory.
Felt that at Tomorrowland.
Yeah, I just saw a Facebook memory yesterday of my dad when he came to Stereosonic with us.
Yeah.
And he was like, so I'm like in my early 20s and he's in his 60s. And he's like, coming to his first festival experience. And I look back to how I operated then in terms of my health and I didn't really care and all of those things. And the more that I actually started to shift and evolve into those later stages, into the 30s, it's like, it becomes more prevalent automatically based on the cell renewal rate. And one of the things with that as well is just recognizing those seasons that we go through as part of it, and kind of circling back to that original point around most overachievers have an experience that they have where they have potentially experienced bullying in that time frame as well. During that time frame, that's when bullying or any form of external stimulus that we perceive as pushing us down creates this mechanism that actually then creates a lot of overachiever mentality. Have you started to see that that's more of a common thing that plays out with some of your overachieving clients where they've experienced bullying to some degree throughout those years?
Yeah, I'd say it's super. I mean, not all of them tell me about it, but I'd say there's definitely a few that I know where it's been like, I mean, there's been some sort of trauma or something as a, throughout throughout their adolescence or youth where, that's been a thing. And I think a lot of them start off like that, right? It's like, you got a point to prove you're not good enough. It's either bullying or a partner or a, mum or dad figure where it's like, you're not good enough and it's a bit of a fuck you. And then all of a sudden later you're like, it's probably not the healthiest way to build a business. So yeah, I'd say there's a lot of, mate, almost, there's two prerequisites to be a successful entrepreneur. One, you got to have some trauma. Two, you got to be neurospicy. It's always like, I got bullied and I had ADHD and, I had to prove a point to my dad. Like, you're going to be a millionaire. And probably a billionaire when you figure out how to fix all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty common.
What do you see has been your journey with, do you consider yourself neurospicy, firstly?
I would definitely say so. I'm not officially diagnosed with anything. I don't like to throw labels around, but I'd say I'm definitely not normal or typical.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what level of the spectrum I'm on, but I'd say there's definitely an aspect of undiagnosed ADHD and potentially a little bit of autism that people like to tell me.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
People at my events will come up to me like, okay, so what do you got? Are you on the spectrum, Asperger's, all of these things? They're like, here's my big long list of things. Which one's yours? Because we're very similar. And I'm like, okay, bro, cool.
What do you got?
What do you got?
It's like me and Lewis Huckstep the first time we hung out, and I was like, dude, I think we've both got the 3 A's. And I didn't realize until I hang out with like normal people, and I'm like, oh shit, like this is really boring. Or like, yeah, right. And then I hang out with people like you and Lewis and Morgan and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, the weirdos. This is sick.
Yeah, this definitely seems like it's become.
I said to a friend the other day, I was like, when does it get to a point where it's like, surely we've like, obviously to diagnose something, it means you're not normal based on what's considered normal.
Yeah.
Which would assume that normal is more than 50% of the population. But I'm like, if you had 100 people in a room right now, and you said, hands up, who's got ADHD? Obviously, 80% of them probably just have undiagnosed gut issues and inflammation they should deal with. But anyway, let's say they have genuine ADHD. It's like 80% of people are going to put their hands up. It's like, okay, well, if 80% of the room has ADHD, then do we just start diagnosing call that normal and then start diagnosing the non-ADHD people as weird people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, interesting.
Yeah,
swung the other way.
Yeah. It's interesting how we are as a society right now, because it's just become, in Queensland, they've just announced that now you don't have to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist to be able to get a diagnosis. A doctor can diagnose you with ADHD now and actually prescribe all of the stuff, where in other states, it's not like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So it just means that, the prevalence of people, and one of the common questions that I ask people is, what's the difference between a trauma response and ADHD then? Because in most instances, a lot of the symptoms that show from it are the same.
Yeah.
So if you have some level of, trauma that has occurred in your childhood, and trauma is acute trauma, but it's also, that's overwhelm. We've also got underwhelm in terms of trauma, which is, the perception that your parent didn't pick you up fast enough is traumatic. That's underwhelm. That's neglect. It's perceived neglect, which has the same response as something which is overwhelming, as if someone's experienced abuse to different people. And one of the things that we look at is we have this symptom of this almost inability to be able to pay attention to things and actually follow through with things, which is like, that's your ADHD diagnosis. But then that's also the same thing for trauma, which is interesting why you say it's like you've got both of those things to be the entrepreneur, but it's like, there's so much crossover of so many of those things. And one of the other pieces is there's like different expressions of people. Basically, you can go to any group of people and then you can basically just get to a place of diagnosing in some form of mental health issue based on every single person, regardless of what's going on for them. Because it's basically like this spectrum where it's like on this side, it's like inability to pay attention. But then on this side, it's like too much attention.
Yeah. Yeah, you can diagnose them if you look hard enough. But even then, it's like, I said tongue in cheek before about the gut issues, but like that's another thing too. is there's such a high prevalence of, like, if I looked at, I mean, I would say this year I've probably looked at close to 500 stool tests. And of those 500, I'd say confidently 95% of them have some sort of dysbiosis or gut permeability issues, or in English, leaky gut. So it's like, well, we know that without going too deep into it, it's like we know that if there's damage to the gut lining and there's endotoxins like LPS getting in, and we know that 50% of your dopamine is created in your small intestine, and that LPS can travel via the bloodstream, penetrate your blood-brain barrier, and then cause issues with your dopaminergic neurons that create dopamine. It would be fair to say that if you have a dopamine deficiency causing ADHD symptoms, that maybe the warehouse where it was created and the destruction of dopaminergic neurons may potentially cause you to have ADHD symptoms like, poor focus, memory loss, slur in your words, lack of focus, can't be fuckeditis, as I call it, lack of motivation drive. But yeah, if you saw the doctor, it's like they're not going to, 9 times out of 10, probably 99 times out of 100, they're not going to ask you about your gut, your digestion. They're not going to ask you about the trauma. It's going to be like, oh, you can't pay attention. Like I think that's a little bit concerning that can happen, because it's like, how many people have the symptoms of ADHD, but it's what you just said, it's a symptom of a deeper issue that hasn't been resolved, and then they're going to get prescribed dexamphetamine and take low-grade speed the rest of their life and just not deal with the underlying issue. And then it's just like almost this badge of honor, like, I got ADHD, which was almost like 5 years ago, where everyone's like, I got burnout. It's a badge of honor. I work so hard. It's like ADHD is the new, burnout essentially. It's like everyone has it. And it's like, it's almost like that story of like, I had ADHD, but I'm successful anyway. It's like that. What do they call it? Like the hero's journey. Yeah. It's like ADHD is everyone's hero's journey now. I was the ADHD kid and now I make a lot of money. It's like, cool, but do you actually, or do you maybe you just haven't dealt with the underlying issues? But then because it becomes so much of their identity, it's like, we could probably resolve that. It's like, oh, no. Like I could probably fix that in 3 months if you just did the things.
Yeah.
But then like, what do you identify as? Because now you're not ADHD anymore. It's like another tangent, but because I used to work in clinical practice mainly when I was an osteo, it was like the amount of people you would get that had pain, but you probably experienced this, like someone who has chronic pain and they start to identify as the condition or identify as the pain. And it's like, you can give them the best protocol in the world, but it's like they're so intertwined with their diagnosis and their identity that it's like, well, who am I without this? So now if Dan gives me the best protocol to heal my autoimmunity, but like we used to call it, sickness behavior, where people literally wouldn't get better and they just like, when they're sick, they get attention from their spouse or their partner or everyone else. Like, poor you, you're so sick and you have to do this and you have no energy. It's like, that's a form of attention and a form of love. So it's like, well, if I now heal this and I don't have it anymore, like I'm not going to get any love anymore. So then it's like that idea of the dog example of like, well, which one's more painful? Is it more painful to stay sick, or is it more painful to not be sick? And then potentially no one's going to love me. I'm not going to get any attention. So then they stay sick. Humans are fucked, eh?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Very interesting. So yeah, I guess that was a massive tangent. But I guess, it all intertwines of like psychology and the physiology, and you can't really have one without the other. But I think I said to someone literally before I came here, I said to him, like, psychology, he was asking me about panic attacks, and we're talking about doing bloods and getting everything sorted. And I was like, it's two things. It's psychology and it's biology, but you can't out psychology poor biology. Like you can do all the breath work, all the meditation, all the journaling in the world. If your body is biologically in a state of chaos internally, your body's in like a fight and flight response or a cell danger response, then does not matter whatever you do over here. So it's like your biology needs to come first, regardless if you're a high performer looking to make millions, or you're someone who's like, I'm in pain and disease state and I just want to feel good again. It's like your biology is the root of everything.
Yeah, one of the things that blew my mind when I was learning more about epigenetic expressions, when I was going through that kind of rabbit hole, was that your biology drives your psychology. So it's, what's happening in your body, even as you were talking about before, like the gut. It's
like, try having a good mood with a cooked gut. People are like, trust your gut. I'm like, no, you shouldn't.
Yeah, what is it? It's like 70% of like serotonin is like in the gut?
95.
95%, yeah.
You have your own ability to generate serotonin, dopamine in the brain as well. So people forget that. A lot of people are like, just jump on the bandwagon, like, oh, your gut's fucked, your brain can't function. Like your brain can still function without it. But there is a massive correlation, like your gut-brain axis. 80% of information goes from the gut to the brain, only 20% from the brain to the gut. So it's like having a highway, and on one side you got 4 lanes, on the other side you got 1 lane. So super important and super efficient relationship. It's like, whatever's happening in your gut microbiome is going to affect your brain. And then if you go a layer deeper, there's certain bacteria, you can see these on a stool test, like bifidobacterium, lactobacillus. These are types of specific strains of bacteria in your small intestine, which help to produce things like GABA, serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine. So it's like, if you've destroyed your gut because you have a poor diet, even though you're macro friendly, like bodybuilders, it's like you can have all the best macros, but if your gut is terrible and destroyed in terms of all the beneficial bacteria, then you're going to be low in the warehouses or the production factories of those neurotransmitters. So no wonder your mood's going to be all over the place. Like you can't expect to be doing, really high volume catabolic style training in a calorie deficit, eating bad food, destroying your gut microbiome and expect to have good mental health. Like it just doesn't work that way. So yeah, it's super interesting. And you see this heaps, like same pattern I see on, let's say 95% of stool tests. It's like the beneficial bacteria that I just mentioned are all low. And then at the same time, because the beneficial bacteria are low and they play a role in your immune system and defending you against pathogenic bacteria, you'll then have things like SIBO and parasites. But if you look in the health world and like the naturopathic wellness world, you don't ever see anyone talking about the first bit. It's always just like, I've got a parasite, do a cleanse. And it's like, you're looking at one piece of like a 17-piece puzzle. Like you can do a parasite cleanse, but if you just did a parasite cleanse, then why is everyone not healed? Like it's cool, you get rid of the parasite, your gut's still destroyed, you still have no beneficial bacteria, you're still eating terrible food, you're still in a poor environment, in a toxic relationship, overtraining, undereating, sleeping poorly. Like how do you expect, it doesn't bother me. But it's like
at all.
The 8 areas I was talking about before. So yeah. Anyway, tangents.
So what are the 8 areas then? Now we can.
Oh, mate, you want to know?
Just got to close the loop for the listeners.
Close that loop. I'll give you 3. Well, number one is sleep. And number one has to be number one. Everything else you can kind of interchange. But if you had the best diet in the world and you slept 3 hours, how good would you feel? Yeah. Insert all the other 8 areas with sleep. It's like when you compare sleep to any other
kids.
area.
Got it.
Yeah, don't have kids. Like you just, or like at nighttime, if you can just like give them away and then
give them away.
Yeah, I don't know how it works.
Just sell them off.
Yeah, it's like when I leave my dog at home, I just leave a bowl of water out, a window open, and I figured out you can't do that with kids. I was like, fuck, okay, not ready.
Finally.
So sleep, circadian rhythm, breathing / nervous system regulation, nutrition, hydration, movement, environments, supplementation, and then psychology or like emotional regulation. So notice in there was supplementation, but that's like one of 8 areas. But what do most people focus on? Indirectly, even if they don't think it's supplementation. You're doing a gut cleanse, you're doing a parasite cleanse, you're doing whatever. It's like, how do you do that? Most of the time it's supplementation. So supplementation is super powerful. I'm very pro supplementation. But even then, all my clients know, I'm like, I nail them with the other 7. I'm like, if you don't get these other 7, I will come to your house with a basement. I was kidding. Like if you don't get these other 7, like there is no point in taking these supplements. Think of it as like there's certain areas where it's almost like driving a car. You've got the accelerator and there's things that are going to help with acceleration. And this is like the things that I call are more anabolic. So it's like, eating a calorie maintenance at least or a surplus, having enough protein, having enough sleep, et cetera. These are things that are going to be accelerating, moving you forward. If you want to drive really fast, you got to do two things. You have to accelerate and you have to also take your foot off the brake. So the brakes are things that are potentially, I guess, toxic and, holding you back. So this is going to be nervous system regulation, getting out of a sympathetic state. It's going to be, removing anything toxic from your environment, removing toxic relationships, etc. The last thing is the handbrake. And this is where supplements come in because you can be doing all the right things in the other 7 areas. And I hear this heaps from high performers because most high performers aren't stupid. They've done lots of ChatGPT, Google, and they're doing a million protocols and they're not idiots where I'm like, have you tried sleeping and taking protein? like, dude, I've been doing Brian Johnson's blood transfusion with my son for the last 6 months. Nothing's working. Like they've done some stuff. So, but most of them, the problem is they don't know what they don't know. And there's a lot of hidden dysfunctions, deficiencies that they don't know or they're not aware of, which is the metaphorical handbrake. And that's where like blood testing, stool testing, some of the testing is super useful because you can't see those things, you can feel them. Another model I use is where you got symptoms. Symptoms are a byproduct of breakdown of your systems, which you can't see. That's where testing is useful. And your systems are breaking down as a byproduct of your habits, routines, behaviors, which are the things, or what I call the metaphorical 8 levers, which I just mentioned. So if we can manipulate those 8 levers I just talked about, you'll then improve how well the systems function. So your brain, your gut, your immune system, your lymphatic system, endocrine system, metabolic system, cardiovascular system, etc. And then based off those systems functioning effectively, you'll then have more energy, focus, better body composition, better digestion, etc. But most people want this, which is the output, but they have no fucking idea what to do with this, which is the input, and they're just doing random things. The key in the middle is the testing, which is like, okay, well, let's pop the hood of your metaphorical car and see what's happening. Look at your P&L, look at your profit loss sheet, like what's actually happening, where are your kinks that you're not aware of? And then we can change how you're doing those 8 things. Because the 8 things are the same for everyone, but they're not the same for everyone, if that makes sense. Like it's the same principles, it's the same methodology, structure, framework, but what you do and what I do might be slightly different. Now we all need 8 hours sleep and to eat protein and to do the basic stuff. But when it comes to the metaphorical handbrakes, you might have different handbrakes to me. Therefore, you need different approach to me in terms of how we manipulate those 8 areas. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That was a big tangent. We went through 3 different frameworks. We went through the 8 by 8 by 8. We went through the 8 different areas, and we went through one other one I forgot. But it's super simple. Like when you visualize it like that, sounds like a lot, but that's like my literal entire framework. I went to this workshop with a guy who told me about models and created this model. You might have heard of him.
Smart guy.
Yeah, but it's really easy when you look at it like that. Like I shared this with a lot of my clients this morning because a lot of people just they look at health and they think it's really complicated. But if you look at it that way and just go, cool, the current symptoms I'm experiencing are a byproduct of a dysfunction in my systems, and my systems are a byproduct of the habits, routines, and behaviors that I am responsible for and I am in control of. Then that's empowering because it's like you can change each of those 8 areas that I just talked about. You don't need a fucking medication. You don't need to go see a doctor. You don't need to hope and pray and wait for something to change to you. It's like you can do those 8 things and you can just do them better and improve 1% in each of those 8 areas and compound that over the next 12 months. And as a byproduct of that, your output will change, which could be improving how you feel in a certain area, or it could be, removing a certain symptom, disease, or something like that. So I think if you look at it like that, super simple, super empowering, obviously complicated when it comes to the specifics, but that's why there's professionals. Mm-hmm. Don't try to do it yourself.
Yeah. What's the number one thing that you recommend, number one hack, if you want to put it that way, because you love hacks?
Actually, don't know. I'm like the anti. Oh, right. I was like, I'm the anti. I was like, fuck. What's Andrea been posting on my Instagram? I'm like the anti-biohacker coach, the non-sexy.
Yeah.
I want you guys to sleep, chew your food slowly, and breathe. Sign me up.
Yeah. That's why I framed it like that, because I knew it'd get you going. It's like the anti-biohacker. What's the number one hack or thing that you recommend for people to get better at sleeping?
There's 3 things that your body cares about when it comes to sleep from a biology perspective. It's temperature, light, and sound. First one, let's say light. There's one thing, if I can only choose one, it's light. So you have this thing in your eye called an eyeball, and then there's this thing called a retina, and then connected to that is your optic nerve, piece of string that connects your eyeball to your brain. So your optic nerve is the direct extension of your brain, is a cranial nerve. And basically, when I look at a light, my eye will detect with photoreceptors, the receptors in my eye, and communicate to my brain what time of day it is. Now, there's different wavelengths of light. Let's just say red light and blue light for now. When you have exposures to blue light or certain waves of blue light, it's going to tell your brain it's time to wake up, and your brain's going to produce a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol's not the devil like everyone makes out, but a cortisol at the wrong time of day could definitely be disadvantageous. That's not in English. Could be what am I trying to say?
Disadvantageous.
Disadvantageous? Yeah.
It's because it's not disadvantage.
Yeah,
it's like a different.
It's like advantageous. What's the opposite? Yeah. So you don't want cortisol pumping at between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. You want cortisol pumping first thing when you wake up. So a common thing that people will experience is I feel tired but wired, where it's like I'm tired, I want to go to sleep. My brain's like, ugh. It's like, well, your brain doesn't know about this man-made construct called time. It just knows biology and it knows light. Back in the day, we didn't have a good old Rolex on our arm. We just looked at the sun. So and the best way to get in tune with this is like, think when you go camping, what generally happens? You go to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock in your day-to-day life and you're wired but tired. All of a sudden you're camping around a campfire with your mates and you're like, oh, fuck, it must be late. Oh, it's 8 o'clock. It's like, that's interesting. What's happening? You've removed yourself from the environment, which is full of EMFs and frequencies and radiation and artificial light and, high frequency sounds. You've taken all that stuff away, put the human back in nature. All of a sudden, the biology starts to catch on. So light is the most important. So first thing in the morning, we want to anchor our circadian rhythm by getting natural sunlight to the eyes. Now, the sunlight in the first few hours of the day, from a wavelength perspective, is not going to be damaging to our retina like it would be if you went out in the sun in the middle of the day. So sun's really bad for your skin. If you listen to people like Brian Johnson, it's like, well, it's very different if you're going for a morning walk at sunrise and getting sun then versus if you're going in the middle of the day in Gold Coast when the UV's 8. Okay, the UV's low and the spectrum of light's very different in the morning. So first thing you should be doing, minimum 10 to 15 minutes natural sunlight first thing in the morning, direct sunlight exposure to the eyes, no sunnies. And if you feel comfortable, get your shirt off, get your rig out. As much sunlight as you can consume as well is going to help set your rhythm. It's going to mean that your body starts to produce cortisol naturally and it sets the anchor. what goes up must come down. So if you can get that cortisol pumping first thing in the morning, it means it's going to drop off when it should, late afternoon. And that's when melatonin starts to kick in to then help you go to sleep. So that's first thing in the morning. Then on the contrary, second thing that's going to happen in the evening is we want to avoid blue light. We want to focus more on red light or Dell lights. So screens, computers, mobiles, when your eyeballs get exposed to this wavelength of light, it's going to send a signal via the optic nerve to the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain, which is a little thing back here. And it's going to say, hey, time to wake up. It's like, do we want to wake up at 8 p.m.? No, we fucking don't. So we want to block all the blue light. So you can get these really sexy glasses, as you've probably all seen, the red light glasses. And I have this question all the time. Are they a scam? Are they legit? People just trying to sell me stuff. People probably trying to sell you stuff. Yeah, 100%. It's social media. But you can get good quality pairs. You just got to make sure you're not buying a dodgy one. So the brand company I use, Blue Box is what it's called, about $150, $200. So if you're buying something that's less than $100 for blue light glasses, they're probably a ripoff and they're probably not genuine. So it should cost you about $150, $200 to get a good pair. But you can wear them after sundown. So my rule is as soon as the sun goes down, I Dell the lights in my house. I have these lights which you can change the color on your phone called Philips Hue lights, where you can change them to red. So the whole house is red, like Amsterdam looking vibe. And then I chuck my red light glasses on. It looks really sexy. And then that way, if I'm working, I'm on TV, or I just want to be a normal human and watch Netflix, I can do so. But I'm not then damaging, not damaging, but I guess I'm not decreasing my chance of having a deep quality sleep. So that's the main thing, is really just manipulating light in your favor. We want sunlight first thing in the morning, and we want to avoid blue light after sundown. That's single-handedly going to be the biggest thing that improves your sleep. Strong second and third would be temperature. Number one, we've all experienced it. You're too hot, you can't sleep, you wake up really hot and sweaty. Optimal temperature is going to be between 16 to 18 degrees. I think that's personally a little bit cold. I tend to sleep at around 20, but that's what the evidence says. Ideally, you just want a cool room, okay? And then the third thing is going to be sound, which is all pretty obvious, but most people don't think about this. And a big culprit of this is people who train late. If you're going to be going to the gym, my rule is your final meal before bed, at least 3 hours before. We don't want to be digesting food and wasting resources, redirecting blood flow from our brain to our digestive system when we're about to go to sleep. So your final meal, 3 hours before bed, 2 at the absolute minimum. And then we want to also start to, like I said, avoid artificial lights. And we also want to avoid loud sounds. Now, if you're someone who goes to the gym, what did you just get exposed to? You're lifting weight, which is really jacked up, sympathetic dominant. You're exposed to real loud music, bangers playing, and you're in artificial light while you're training. And you come home and you're like, oh, I'm hungry, so now I'm going to eat and have my protein. And then you try and go to bed and you're wondering why you sleep like shit. So that's really just a practical example of doing all the wrong things. So what I'd suggest would be the light rule I mentioned, last meal 3 hours before bed, technology off 2 hours before bed, ideally 1, and then making sure we keep the lights nice and dull before we go to bed once the sun goes down, and get your morning sunlight in. There's like 5 things, but first thing would just be sunlight.
Yeah.
And that'll make everything else better. That's the when you go to a wedding and they have the chandelier style glasses where they pour the first one, everything else starts to flow. That's your first one. That's sleep. Everything else will then flow.
Yeah, cool. Love it. I think that's the perfect thing to wrap up on. What's the best way for people to find you?
Probably Instagram. So I'm not very tech savvy. Don't have a website. So it's just the Instagram, which is Dr.Daniel Kirkbride.
Epic. This has been fun. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, mate. Hope you are dialing your sleep now.
Got all my hacks for it now.
Yeah.
So.